What will happen in 2025? An international forecasting website, Deagle.com, published an interactive graph where it projects future prospects or trends for any nation in the world that you click on. Although the graph has been updated since 2013, their site currently charts changes in population, GDP, and other national factors of almost every country in the world from 2017 to 2025, allowing you to easily cross-compare the statistics.
When you look at the United States of America, in 2017, population 327 million, their forecast for 2025 is 100 million people. So when they were asked about this, back, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, they said, well, it'd be due to economic conditions. They expect a gigantic crash to happen and people will leave the US. But when you add all the numbers together, which I did, it shows there's about 550 million less people in the world in 2025 than there is in 2017.
I wrote in 2015 the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. The book was considered science fiction. All those technologies have become reality.
I also believe that governments are not going to legislate and enforce regulations on the safety of AI systems. So they are going to allow the companies to do what the companies themselves claim will lead to at least a 25% chance of human extinction.
And we are just now where we move into the exponential phase. Artificial intelligence, but not only artificial intelligence, but also the metaverse, new space technologies. Our life in 10 years from now will be completely different, very much affected. And who masters those technologies in some way will be the master of the world.
Listen, most investments today feel like second jobs in disguise. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. But you've got a life to live. Your investments should help you live it. You deserve a strategy that builds wealth without sacrificing your time, sanity, or freedom. And that's why more Americans are choosing gold. Gold doesn't demand your attention. It doesn't crash overnight, and it doesn't care who's trending on Twitter. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of investors just like you, people who want both profit and peace of mind, secure their future with real physical gold. There's a reason smart investors are going back to basics, choosing the only asset trusted by civilizations for over 5,000 years. Gold offers freedom and peace of mind 1 ounce at a time. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. We're going out of the matrix into prime reality. That's the mantra here. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Everybody in the live chat, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you for your love, your support, your presence. As we dive into a subject that we have talked about numerous times, but we're going to go more specific today. And I'm going to preface this by saying that both Christine and I have been systems researchers, systems thinkers, systems observers for 25 years. So that is what we have been doing, is observing and studying all the systems that, are basically in this world, in this society, in this system, how they function, who created them, why they were created, and given all these factors, where these systems are going. So saying this, I'm very confident that what I'm about to share with you is largely accurate, even in timeline. Now, I'm not big on date predictions, but sometimes it's so clear that you can't miss it. This is one of those situations. So we're going to talk about the next 5 years from two perspectives. Very important. mainstream society and breakaway society. Those are going to be the two perspectives. And there are things fundamentally, the fundamental message is the changes that are now starting and will go on until into the 2030s, but especially over the next 5 years, are so paradigm shattering, are so incredibly, unbelievably huge that it will cause all kinds of problems. The problems have started a long time ago, but we are now going into the symptoms are going to fully express in the next 5 years. So this can't be overestimated. What we're about to experience in this world, there is no reference point for that. We can't point to any point in history where this has happened. So this is how monumentally huge the next 5 years. And this is now, we're already in it. It's not, it's going to start. It's already in it. But we have gone into the categories of how we could sort of break it up. What we're going to see specifically in human behavior, societal behavior, what's going to happen there. Because think about it this way. There is nothing happens unless human make it happen. So there's no history that just unfolds in and of itself. It has to be participation by humans, and humans doing things in a certain way, reacting in a certain way. So even if all of these new technologies were to be introduced, but humans wouldn't react to them, then it wouldn't make that big of a difference. But humans are reacting, and we're seeing certain patterns. So let's dive into it, and let's take a really good look at this. So the number one thing that I would like to talk about, because it's going to affect everyone, passively or actively, is the psychological collapse. So what we've seen in the last 5 years in terms of decline and psychological illness, mental illness, and decline in cognitive functions, we haven't seen in our lifetimes before. So Christine and I used to observe this even before the 2020s, but what we're seeing now and how it's getting worse by the day is exponential. So we're in the exponential phase. So you're going to see all kinds from severe depression, emotional breakdowns, complete cognitive overload, which is unfortunately going to lead to even higher unalivement rates. People are going to unalive themselves at even higher rates than now. That's unfortunately, it's just what it is going to be, specifically because of mental, psychological, and underlying spiritual issues. So psychosis, schizophrenia, dissociation, escapisms. Escapism is going to be a big one. So we already see every day now what used to be classified as drugs and were taboo are now being sold at gas stations all over the place. So you see that drugs are entering the mainstream sphere as completely acceptable, so that people can numb themselves for a little longer or zone out or do something to not be confronting. So we're going to see this. We're already seeing it, this huge wave of escapism, where people escape either in digital worlds, AI created worlds, metaverses, digital realities, and combined with drugs and other stimulants or depressants. It doesn't really matter, but this is huge. You're going to observe this in your family. You're going to observe this in your friend circles. You're going to meet people after a couple of years you haven't seen them, and they're going to be really far gone. And just so you know, be prepared for that. This is what's going on, 100%. And then, of course, the mass formation stuff that we have seen specifically since 2020s, the big split, the tribalism, the scapegoating, the hysteria about certain subjects. So the ramp up of the climate hysteria is still happening. You know, America has taken a little bit of a break from it right now, but other places of the world are going up in this. And it's going to cause, we're going to see, and we're going to get to this later, we're going to see climate lockdowns. We're going to see climate restrictions. We're going to see these things heavily. So that's just what it is, folks. I you know, for better or worse, a health and mortality crisis. So this has this really, it didn't begin in 2020. It began in 2022, I would say. We all know what the most recent factor is, but those were really compounding factors over the last decades. Once again, if you look at specifically America, the obesity crisis was the fundamental, the what made it all possible, if you will, was this incredible shift towards unhealthy, obese, diabetes-laden, all these things, specifically since the early 1980s and onward. There were shifts in the food production chain. There was GMO introduction, corn syrup, you name it. All these things started to come into play, and many others, pesticides. I mean, we could go on and on about this, but the fact is, and I've said this many times, the crisis is going to start hitting really, really hard in 26, I predict. So in 2026, it will be where no one, no media, no governments, nothing can hide this any longer. So the excess mortality, the weirdest sicknesses, neurological, cardiac, heart failures, and what we're going to see that's going to be so shocking is just the younger people, right? It's going to be anyone under the age of 60, 55 that's going to clearly go, okay, no way this is natural. This is already happening, but it is not happening at the rate yet where it is undeniable. It's still being sort of pushed under the rug, but that's what's going to happen. We're going to see the related massive problems, massive deaths, which is aligned on the human level with the Depop agenda that's been on the books for a very long time. I dare I remind all of us of the infamous Georgia Guidestones that were removed a few years ago. You remember that overnight spectacle. They were erected in the 80s, removed overnight, but the reminder is there. We know what it said. Population there was, I think, 500 million, if I remember correctly. So we're seeing these trends going in that direction in mainstream society. I don't know what to say other than if people say this is some sort of fear-mongering, it has nothing to do with fear-mongering. It's like, let's say you are an assessor. You are you're somebody who knows and has studied a specific field, and then they call you in as an expert and say, okay, study this, look at the totality of data that you have, and then tell me, what am I looking at in the next years? This is what we do. This is what we have been doing, looking at all the data that's available, looking at all the indicators, and taking into account room for error. So I take into account room for error. I will make a soft prediction that until the end of the decade, we're going to see a population decline. So not just population growth decline, but actual population decline between 10 and 15%. And that is conservative in my estimate. I actually would go much higher, but this is conservative till the end of the decade. And then you're going to see, you're going to see the broken, horrible, sick care systems that are in place in most countries overwhelmed completely. That's why governments left and right are starting to create suicide programs, assisted suicide programs. That's why Canada is doing their assisted lung drowning program with, that's part of it. Part of it is to take the pressure off the systems and say, hey, here's an alternative. Why don't you just petition your government to give you permission to commit suicide? The most ludicrous thing in the world, but hey. So this is what we're going to look at, what we're going to be looking at in the health sector. Where I didn't go deep enough, sort of, it's its own subject, is the technologically induced zombification of people, which is going to cause problems for everyone, because there are people already so detached from any moral compass or ability to feel or ability to intuit or ability to distinguish wrong from right. And they're already starting to lash out, right? We've seen this Anybody who pays attention to traffic patterns sees this. People are nuts, specifically in the cities. Driving in the cities is like, it's becoming worse by the day. And it's not because people are actively choosing to be worse drivers or be more aggressive. It's because part of the brain that regulates behavior, part of the hippocampus that is responsible for analysis and situational awareness, has shut down or has been shut down because of many factors. So we're looking at a real cognitive problem, at a real physiological problem. It's not that people choose to be bad or aggressive. It's that the part of their brains that would help them level things out is not functioning any longer. So this is what causes this. This is why I call it the zombification. And this is going to start in a big way. I predict by next year, 26 is going to be, very, very big on this. I don't have to tell you, you are aware of this, the technocratic technological enslavement. And by the way, we're going to get into the breakaway society because there's something else happening. So stick with us here. We're just showing what mainstream society is going to do. And mainstream society is at least 90% of the people, okay? I'm not making these numbers up. This is what we're observing. So we're already seeing day by day by day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour, an outsourcing of life and decisions and business and everything to AI, right? So every day, new companies are popping up, new systems are popping up that are teaching and showing people how to outsource decisions to AI, every decision. So what that does is it bypasses a logical chain of thinking patterns that usually would have happened simply because in order for us 10, 15, 20 years ago to get information that we need for a decision, we would have had to go through slower channels, read through websites, read a book, read a lexicon or a dictionary, or find out definitions. We had to jump through hoops and think about things. All of that is now compressed into a 5 to 10 second period where we put a prompt. People do that every day, all day. Put a prompt into large language models like ChatGPT or Grok, and then Grok spits out the answers clearly in a very limited way, but people don't see it. And so this is going to become huge, and it's going to disable the already thinking lazy, excuse me to say this, masses who already don't want to think in the first place. Whatever capacity for free thinking they still have is going to be slowly but surely disabled. Actually, not so slowly. With this plugging into the AI, plugging into these systems, these systems very soon are going to require for you to continue to be plugged into them, digital IDs and all of that stuff. So there's this convergence of convenience and comfort with the price of complete surveillance. So these systems are very, very, very soon, as soon as people are dependent enough on them, these systems are going to require more information about you and more consent to share, and people are going to do it. So that's going to, a loss of self-agency, and basically we will, not we, but society at large will be run by algorithms. Their lives and choices, their food choices, their music choices, their TV choices, their vacation choices, their partner choices, the time when they have children or not, all of that will be algorithmically run. There will be, and that won't be called that, but it will be like the life algorithm. And it will basically be an optimized AI-driven algorithm that will help people make all their life decisions on a daily basis. And it will be in the form of your personal AI assistant that's going to be embedded in everything in your life. So it's going to be in your TVs, in your fridges, everywhere, and omnipresent, if you will. and it will just, you know, it'll basically say when you open the fridge and you go for something, to say this is not the time for this, you should eat this now or get this now or whatever. This is 100% where this is going in the next few years. We already see this, the media and information collapse, which is causing within mainstream society, we now have a fractalization of reality already. So there is no more one major narrative. Whether that was the truth or not is a different story, but there used to be a one major narrative that most people would go by. This has been shattered into sub narratives. So the media used to be the set, you know, they could set the narrative. That doesn't happen, or happens on a less and less and less and less. So you have these sub narratives, and there is not really a competition for facts any longer, but what do more people believe in? That's really where this comes down to. So there's no trust, but at the same time, there's an increased addiction to information. So people are looking for replacements for their CNNs and MSNBCs and Fox News and whatever the stations are in your country. And they're looking to the podcast sphere, and they're looking everywhere to replace that. But these are, for the most part, sub-echo chambers that are serving their own agendas or someone's agenda. Very, very little truth to be found, or people that at least have the aspiration to share truth, free from ideological constraints. So it will be, for the masses, much harder to recognize truth, and they will sort of live in their own echo chamber tribal camp. And of course, I don't have to tell you what happens when more than 50% of the content that we see created, whether it's for entertainment purposes, news purposes, or whatever, is AI created, that you create a sub-reality. And with the AI creation and the deep fakes, we are also, this is its own subject. We're going to go into that, what is happening with how this influences the field of creation and why. It's its own thing. But let me just tell you this: we're at this point where so much AI created bullshit is on the internet that it creates its own fake reality that people believe to be true, which causes huge problems for society. Of course, environmental and societal stressors. So we're seeing huge geoengineering, and that's now being admitted. The time of, and this is how David Icke said it so many times. He said this in the 90s. He said, first you have to hide what you're doing. And because so few people know what you're doing, it's not so hard to hide. But once more and more people see it, you can't hide it any longer. You have to start selling it to the people. That was the case with AI. AI was embedded into the systems a long time ago, but it wasn't really felt or seen by the people. Once it was clear, it had to be sold to the people. So now you have to make it appealing to them. And we're going to have a big conversation around AI in following days with Greg Braden. We are diving into the hijacking of the spiritual field by AI. And I look forward to that conversation. It's going to be great. But to stick with this here, the environmental and societal stressors is, so geoengineering is going to go from being called a ludicrous, insane conspiracy theory, even though the patents and the technologies have existed for decades and decades and decades. It's now moving into, oh yeah, we are clearly, state governments are starting to ban certain things that officially don't exist. But now they're going to go into the selling point. Hey, we have all these problems. See, we're finally acknowledging all the storms and all the changes that were largely geoengineered, but hey, we are acknowledging it. And so here are the engineered solutions. So that's what's going to happen here. Reframed, geoengineering reframed as solutions. And we're going to see a rise in more civil unrest, more micro events, and then bigger events. Why? When people when there is an economic crisis, let me put it that way. We had 08, 09, the big crash, right? And even though the health crisis was already underway back then, it wasn't nearly as bad as it's now. So the reason why things are getting worse exponentially faster is the compounding effect. Now people have economic problems that don't seem to go away, health problems that are increasing rapidly, psychological problems. All of this is compounding. And when people feel that they have nothing left to lose, they are willing to be more chaotic. They're willing to be more unruly and violent and whatever. It's just what happens in situations like that. And this is what we're observing, is a compounding and sort of cascading factors. And that's why things getting worse exponentially in mainstream societies. So cities are going to be a, something I would avoid, and I am, and we are, and I would encourage people, if they can, to avoid cities. I know some people live there and they don't see themselves leaving, or they don't see a way out, or it's all personal choice at the end of the day. But cities are not going to be very comfortable or enjoyable places in the next years. And then we get to this flashpoint, this breaking point that we believe will happen in a 6-month period between October 2026 and March 2027. And there are multiple factors that lead us to this conclusion, which is again, the financial side of things, looking at how world economies, where they're moving, looking at where the debt to GDP ratio, is moving, looking at the unwillingness of societies at large to acknowledge the false and fake fiat financial systems, looking at the rapid development and introduction and activation of CBDCs or digital currencies. So that's on the financial side of things. At the latest, I believe at this point, we're going to see a big big events, just big events that will, they will just have a cascading effect. There is to be expected, given all the exercises, given all the changes, the WHO, international health regulations, the pandemic agreements, all of that, and the exercises worldwide and the rhetoric worldwide, it all points to another major event in that arena over the next 2 years, maybe. The thing is, in my perception, it will have to be something that wasn't specifically trained for, just a little different enough. But I just don't currently see this not happening, right? Because of everything that's still being planned to happen. The cyber attack is, or a big cyber event. You will remember we had a huge worldwide airport cyber event last year. People forget about these things because so many happen. We are seeing nationwide blackouts for which there is no other explanation, folks. It's not like all the power grid is connected in a nation. These are usually power grid systems that are geographically limited and have fail-safe mechanisms. So when all of these grids, it's not one grid, these are multiple grids in each nation, when all of them fail at the same time, it's not a coincidence, it's not an anything. These are either allowed or not allowed attacks on the system, or their stress tests to see what would happen. Now, with a power outage, just so you know, if we would have an extended power and internet outage, but specifically power outage, the scenarios aren't very pretty. I would encourage everyone to go look into the game plans that were created by government and non-government agencies for power outages. The fallout is huge. So if you are in a urban area, the fallout of an extended power outage is massive, not to be underestimated. And you wouldn't believe the numbers that you read there, but okay. And of course, the war escalation talks and actions, we're now seeing the European Union has ramped up its defense production to non-historic levels because it's never happened before. The United States has a defense budget of $1 trillion. $1 trillion. That is $1,000 billion. That's unimaginable amounts of money that are going into the production of weapon systems, shield systems, and anything that has to do with defense. So there's that. And with all these factors cascading within mainstream society, the psychological breaking point, I believe, will be reached within the next 1.5, 2 years. Like I said, when also, and you have to take into account, when your family members start passing away, your neighbors start passing away, your friends start passing away, your colleagues start passing away, when everywhere you look, people drop, at some point, unless you can see what's going on and you have a bigger picture, the despair and the sadness and the grief and the complete, not understanding what's happening is causing psychological breakdowns. You have seen this with people that are in situations where they can't handle the stress or the pressure anymore. They fall apart. So we think this is going to happen on a bigger scale within society. Okay, so here we go into what will happen on a different level, because we have also never seen anything like this. And here we go into the 1 to 3% of the population that are quietly or semi-quietly breaking away slowly but surely from society. So this is going to exponentially grow within the next 5 years. So micro communities, self-sustainable communities, existing small towns starting to get together and create plans and put them into action. This is already happening. And it's happened quietly. Listen, people usually don't announce where they go and what all they do where they go, because the whole point for them is to step away from the madness that I just explained that's happening within mainstream society. And that is, for all intents and purposes, I don't see a way to stop this, right? Because there's no willingness. We can't stop them from doing anything. And within them, there's no willingness, no awareness of it. So it's just taking its course. But then we have about 10% of people who are in various stages of awakening. So among those 10%, I would say about 7% will go into semi-self-sustainable situations or create more or less dependence on the system. Still plugged in, but less. 1 to 3%. They're the ones who are building and have built alternative situations. But rather than just lone wolf or lone wolf families being somewhere, this is going to get more connected. Communities are going to start connecting more. People that have been in the self-sustainable off-grid lifestyle, for the most part, while they can manage certain things, without community, other things are lacking and missing. Community is a necessity for human beings. We are not built to be alone. So that factor is coming in, the Skillshare factor. So this is all starting to happen. People feel it. People can't stand it any longer. They don't like what's happening in urban areas, and they are moving further and further out. They're looking for land. They're looking for community. All of these things are beginning to happen. The sovereign micro communities. So this is now intentional. And this is also people that are making big choices. Some of them have been invested into the matrix system their entire lives. Their plans, how they would live it, how they would retire, what they would do, the comfort of very well planned out, communities where people can live, eat, shop, healthcare, everything's in a concentrated area. And people have worked for that their lives, and they've invested in that. And now a lot of them, even at an advanced stage in their lives, are changing their plans because of what they're observing and because of what they're seeing and because of what their calling is. So these are not temporary survival strategies any longer. They used to be. These are now long-term lifestyle change strategies. It's a whole different thing. So people are wondering, how can we build this so that my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will live in a natural, self-sustainable environment that can function even when mainstream society is completely dysfunctional, which we're close to that, right? So this is the kind of systems thinking that is now involved, which means, how do we create power? What is the infrastructure that we want to build together? How do we school or educate? What do we build there? How do we organize communities? How do we skill share? All these questions are beginning to come up, and communities are doing it fairly quiet, because once this reaches a certain number of communities and people, there is the threat factor to the system, and the system isn't threatened by the number of people who are doing it. The system is threatened by the spirit and the knowledge and the information that those people might share with the system's people. That's where the fear is like, we don't want that kind of empowerment within the masses. That's how they're thinking. So there is this concern by many people who are saying, hey, Jean, listen, it's all good and well, but if I create a garden and they're still spraying, and if I do this, it's all in vain. It won't work. This is a good strategy, isn't it? And that's what they're putting out there. They're putting out there specifically people who poo-poo on everything and just say, hey, it's all not worthwhile. It's never going to happen. Meanwhile, many people are living this lifestyle, and they're doing it so quite successfully and beautifully. And learning and expanding and having new ideas and creating defense shields of a different nature, of a more spiritual nature, if you will, or a more frequency nature. All of this is possible. So this is the future is local. Micro communities, probably, I would say, the sweet spot is probably communities of 200 people, give or take. Many of them geographically quite close, so it solves a lot of the infrastructure problems. And the idea is, we have been taught to always think more and more centralized, right? So how can more people benefit from a singular structure? This is exactly the opposite. We're now saying smaller communities, decentralized structures. This is a different way of thinking, meaning that if there's a problem in one community, if something happens, the others still function because they don't depend necessarily on another community or on this. So this is decentralized thinking. Self-reliance and food sovereignty. So this is already happening for people, are beginning, more and more people shop directly with farmers markets. But this is more than that. This is people overcoming their fear of farming and gardening and keeping livestock. We've been programmed by our elders and teachers that gardening and farming is incredibly difficult, incredibly labor intense, and very risky and not rewarding. And they didn't mention, because they don't know anymore, that they're talking about industrial, non-natural farming and gardening, where we build monocultures and where we do not mimic how nature does it, but we do it how humans, disconnected humans would do it. But when we return to the principles of nature, permaculture, mimicking nature, and those, then we will find that with some, yes, intense initial labor, if it's done right, we can go into much more relaxed situations. And that if we think this through and observe properly, that kind of lifestyle is not only possible, but not as massively labor intense as we were told it would be. So already people are trying to completely escape the GMOs and all the pesticide-ridden foods within the urban areas, and simply by shopping in stores, it is almost impossible. because there's so much deception there. You have the organic and non-organic section are right next to each other, and that kind of shows us exactly. It's a good visual for how it's grown. You have the same big farms grow organic and non-organic food, but they don't do it geographically disconnected. They do it in the same, one field is next to the other. So you're telling me the pesticides don't travel? You're telling me the GMO seeds don't travel? All of that travels and mixes. It's just a labeling, really. So to stay away from that and to go into natural foods, it's a conscious, clear decision. You have to do your research. You have to start doing your own thing. And even then, it can be sometimes challenging, but that's just the way it is right now. There's no, if you're looking for the 1, 2, 3 easy fix, it's not there. We're building it. This is pioneer stuff. Okay. And this is becoming a healing way of life, by the way, for many people. It's not just about, like I said, survival. It's about changing, slowing down, becoming more connected, being more present with people. Actually, hey, oh, you know how to do this, I know how to do that, I'll help you, you'll help me, kind of the old school ways that have almost been forgotten. This is what's coming back, and it's coming back in a beautiful way. Of course, sacred community, human connection, being together, singing together, creating together, praying together, cooking together, children actually being in natural connection with each other, meals, fire circles, rebuilding the bonds that the dog eat dog society has completely destroyed, rebuilding trust, rebuilding friendship, kinship, love, just these values that are the foundational principles of any family, community, and society. Also establishing guidelines for such societies. There's this myth that no rules or guidelines are needed, and that's just not how reality works. Where 2 or more people gather, there's always going to be some sort of agreements on the do's and the don'ts, right? And it's mutual respect. So all of this is coming back, and it's been prepared. This has been prepared for decades now and tested, and what works and what doesn't. So I'll give you one example. What has been tested over and over and does not work. It's the commune approach, where people don't have any ownership in anything, and they all share the space, and there is none of them are owning anything, or there's a central ownership. That does not work. So the number one reason why all of these eco villages and everything has failed is that there was no ownership. What is really important, and even though we know spiritually we can't own anything, we can't own land, but for the time that we're here, if you're going to have a community, it's important that each person or family owns the piece of land that they inhabit and have stewardship over it, and only agree to the fundamentals, like they're not going to build something industrial on it. But other than that, they need to have that kind of stewardship. They need to have the ownership. Like I said, communes 99.9% of the time don't work. When there's ownership and when there's clarity around that, these things can be beautifully successful. That's what the Kins domain show, the Kins domain movements in Russia. Unfortunately, in the Ukraine is very little information right now because of the situation. But this is how these communities work, and work beautifully. And then, of course, and this is the fundamental, is all of this is birthed from an inner knowing. So we're talking about sovereignty. And sovereignty, people mistake sovereignty and freedom for external assertions, where, I want to be sovereign and free, so I got to write these documents, and I got to tell the government about it, and I got to do all these things. And unfortunately, none of these things really work because they are birthed from a wrong perception. Sovereignty is first and foremost an inside job. So we assume full responsibility for who we are, for the healing that might need to take place, and everything in between. And we build our sovereignty from within, where we are sovereign over our choices, right? And it's an inside job first. So this is what's starting to come back. More groundedness. People are really implementing beautiful and logical and natural spiritual practices. What is a natural and logical spiritual practice? Breath work. Okay. Nothing is more logical than for the human being to breathe deeply and oxygenate the body, activate the nervous system, activate the cerebral fluid. All of this is as much as logical, physiological as it is spiritual. Both things are completely interdependent. That's coming back. And we are, with that, we're shedding the ego necessity to be right, to be first, to win. And we're moving much more in a spirit of collaboration, which is incredibly empowering, right? So this is what's happening on that level. And it's return to truth, to authenticity, to those things. The 1 to 3% in the next 5 years, you're going to be sort of surprised as to, you will just maybe drive down a country road, take one turn, and all of a sudden what is this? Beautiful flowers. You'll see more bees and butterflies. People be more relaxed. You'll see homesteads. You'll see all of that. That's going to be kind of coming up like mushrooms all over the place. But know that most of them are not going to sort of project this out into the open in a loud way. They're just going to build it. They're not going to go and make sure the whole world knows about it. That kind of defeats the purpose. And this is really, think about 1 to 3% of the world's population. That's a lot. And more than enough, by the way, to affect the long-term strategic, beautiful change that we're all looking to make in this first way of exiting the matrix. So this is Kin's domain. If you don't know about this, what this means, I encourage you to look up the Ringing Cedars books, Ringing Cedars of Russia, Vladimir Megra, 10 beautiful books that are, just incredible to read and inspiring, have inspired millions of people worldwide, and allow people to rethink their programming, allow people to see the false thinking in our cultures today, all our cultures. There's an incredible amount of erroneous thinking, if there is thinking at all. And also how to, right? The how to. It's not so hard. The how to build this, how to create gardens, how to live more in sync with nature. These things, we can learn them, we can remember them, we can read about them, teach each other. And if you think that all the children, of the 1 to 3% of the population will grow up in these kinds of conditions, we're talking about massive shifts in consciousness, which is what all this is about, friends. It's all about shifting consciousness, right? Because when we can shift consciousness on a systemic level, then we have these quantum leap moments as a human family. And this is what this is really all about. So this is quietly. It's not going to be loud. It's not going to be viral. It's about lighthouses being lighthouses and doing it where they are. And I'm gonna say this like I always say it. When people hear about this, they often feel overwhelmed, depending on where you live, what your lifestyle is like. People will say, well, I'm living in an apartment in the city. There's nothing I can do. I don't have the money right now, or I don't have the help, the resources. I hear you. So I'm going to give you the gift of the excuse killer, what I call the excuse killer. Do what you can with what you have where you are right now. Easy. This means that you don't need anything else to get started. You just have to turn on your creative mind, your creative brain, your creative spirit, and say, okay, what can I do today, right now, with what I already have, where I am right now, to move or to take one step in this direction, just one small step. Is it learning more? Okay, then that's the first step. Is it asking someone for more information that's somewhere around me? Is it starting to make a new friend that might be interested in these kinds of things? Is it going into my backyard and planting my first edible bush or just a seed, right? Whatever this is in your life, you can start somewhere. Is it greater financial independence? Is it making sure that you have a clear view of your life situation? Is it deciding that you are not going to eat certain foods any longer and you're going to replace them with healthier? There's so many things that you can do, and so many things that you can do right now that do not require money, that do not require other people, that are simply a choice that you can make. Do what you can with what you have where you are. That's the excuse killer. And if you ever think about, oh my God, I can't do anything, remember this, write it down, put it on your fridge, wherever you are, repeat it to yourself. This is what separates those who continue and stay complaining from those who a year or two from now will be in a completely different situation. It's baby steps. It's not here today and somewhere completely else different tomorrow. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. It's how everything is built, including empires. So yeah, friends, this is where we're going to see the next 5 years go. I'm excited. We've been building, waiting for this. The fairy tale version of we're all going to wake up one day and it's all going to be fixed was never going to happen. That because it would have been detrimental to us. If magically we would have woken up and everything would have been fixed and taken care of, we would have lost so much of what we're now remembering. So, all that being said, like I say, I am incredibly excited for even the next 5 years. And we're going to continually have to remind ourselves that the suffering of others does not have to become our own suffering. We can make that choice. We can choose it, or we can choose to be in our own place of joy, not minimizing their suffering, but realizing it's all about choices. And last but not least, I want to say that many of you, when we hosted the After Awakening retreat, told us they couldn't be there at that time or for some reason couldn't attend it. We recorded the After Awakening retreat, and we're making it available to anyone who couldn't be there. And it's going to be yours if you choose to go on that journey, if you choose to go deeper, if you want to go through life-altering guided breath work and meditation sessions, if you want to have the tools also how to create these more sovereign lifestyles and what you might need for that on a systems or principle or practice basis, where you learn how to make these plans, if you will. All of this is what we covered and more in the After Awakening retreat. And if that speaks to you, just go and check it out, afterawakeningretreat.com. And like I said, you will also get access to the exclusive Telegram group of all attendees and future attendees. So everyone who goes through that, they connect there, and they exchange and talk to each other, and it's a community, which is the most important part about it. So yeah, we'd love to see you there, even in the recorded version. We're still going to be there. The Spirit's going to be there. And we created some incredible high consciousness fields that are there for you to enjoy. All right, my friends. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for tuning in. You know, we love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon. Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy. But most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did. And that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.